Welcome to Gifted with ADHD with me, Juliet O'Rourke. Today I'm joined by Helen Amery, an author and coach who helps people let go what she calls negative identities so they can finally feel free to live the life they want. What really stood out to me in this conversation was Helen's own transformation. From living in constant anxiety, always feeling she would be seen as a failure, to becoming completely free from her limiting beliefs. We also explore her beautiful understanding of the human experience, that we're not separate but one spiritual being. Helen shares that happiness isn't something to chase, it's our natural state. And even as our thoughts and feelings shift and change, the truth of who we are, pure consciousness, is always constant. It's a truly fantastic episode. I took so much away from it and I know you're going to love it too. So Helen, I just want to ask you, what is it that you do and how do you help people?
Yeah, gosh, that billion-dollar question. So my title is a Mace Energy Method Practitioner, so Mace, M-A-C-E, which was named after John Mace, the founder of this work. And I help people really eliminate negative reactions, resistances, any emotional negativity out of their world so they have a nicer life, basically.
Okay. So that sounds great, doesn't it? Have a nicer life. It almost sounds a bit too good to be true. Like, how can you, can you explain a little bit more about that? How do they get to that nicer life part?
Yeah. So if I bring it in terms of one of the core things that we work with in the Mace Energy Method is what we term negative identities. So these are, if you think about identities generally, you have lots of positive identities. You're an amazing mother. You drive a car, that's a very useful identity. Right now, you're being a podcaster, that's a very useful identity. So we have all these positive identities that we've adopted, often consciously, like we've chosen to learn a skill or learn, like being a parent, you don't necessarily know from day one what you're doing, but you gradually develop that positive identity around being a parent. If it was driving a car, you go and have lessons, you learn how to be a driver, and then you're off, you develop that positive identity. But what we also did when we were younger, unknowingly, usually when we're younger, sometimes when we're older, but usually when we're younger, we've unknowingly created negative identities for ourselves. And these are really what contain all the negative aspects of life. So whenever we're feeling negative about ourselves, about our personality, about how we're showing up in the world, even in fact, if we're feeling negative about other people and how they're showing up in the world, then that's all symptomatic of a negative identity, which causes us all these problems fundamentally. So that's what we deal with. That's what we get people free from, so they're not looping in those negative identities anymore.
Wow. I mean, this sounds like it could be so helpful for like a lot of my viewers and the people that I help that have ADHD. As you know, I have ADHD as well. And I think that I've had some really big negative identities that have come up in my life that are not the ADHD itself, but they're like manifested by having a different kind of brain wiring. So I'm just wondering, have you had experience of people that, like, maybe, because I think some of the things that my clients would say, and this is something that I said my whole life, was just this feeling of being overwhelmed, like, by life, feeling that everything's too much to deal with. That's probably the most common thing. Have you had an experience of how it can help that kind of thing in life?
Yeah, so I won't speak significantly around ADHD. I'd love to hear your experience, because I know you've experienced this work for yourself. But overwhelm is such a common, what we would call a trait, such a common reason why people want to have this help. Because, they're doing their life, they're going about their work, their family lives, and when they keep getting knocked off course, taken out the game from this overwhelm, fundamentally, we hate that as a human being. We love making a difference in the world. We love making a positive impact. We love having positive relationships. We love getting stuff done. And so if we keep getting taken off track and literally knocked off course by this overwhelm, then it feels awful. We lose that sense of being in charge of our own life, because we're like, it's like so big, we can't keep living and being in the way we want to be. And that's actually John Mace's original mission statement, was to get people back in charge of living their own lives and dreams, because that's when we feel good. That's literally what feels great for us. We're back in charge. We're not overwhelmed by emotion. We still feel emotion. We're not trying to get rid of emotion here. We're not trying to get rid of any feelings. We're just getting us back in charge of our own life, living in the flow of that emotion as it comes and goes.
Well, I mean, as you mentioned, I have experienced MACE myself, so I just want to bring that up, that one of the things that I brought to you in our session was procrastination, which is another really huge thing for a lot of my viewers, probably, along with overwhelm, I'd say, the two things that seem to really come up when we have ADHD. And I thought, to be honest, that procrastination would be something that I was stuck with my whole life. And I've found out that it isn't. And that is, I've in a way, that's kind of why I'm here doing this podcast, because it's kind of freed up so much. What I would say is, that identity that I had as a procrastinator. And I wonder if you could speak to a little bit about that, because that's the thing I've heard you talking about on other things, I think, around how we almost kind of come to accept this like level of discontent in a way, or not necessarily unhappiness, but life being just sort of okay, which I think that's where I'd got to, because I'd done a lot of coaching myself, and I thought, oh, this is probably, the best I can do, because I don't think I consciously thought that, but after experiencing the MACE, and as you know, I'm now training to do it myself, training to be a practitioner. That's I loved it so much, I bought the company kind of thing. I just I wondered what you could say about how actually you see how great life can be, not just okay kind of thing for people. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So just want to pick up and highlight a couple of things you've just said there. One being this thing that, we think it's who we are, but it's really not. And the sign is, if it feels rubbish, if it feels negative in any way, if it brings you down in any way, then it's not the real you, and you can get free from it. So that's like your barometer the whole time. And the thing that I've seen is that, I talk about this phrase like comfortable discomfort. So most people in the world are living in this comfortable discomfort. It's like God, how long has EastEnders been running? Because all the people on that show are living in that comfortable discomfort. Like, we'll just all moan together and have a good time. Well, that's my memory of it anyway from the 80s. I don't watch it anymore.
I think it's still the same.
So it's still the same. And that's, there's kind of that safety in numbers. Like, well, we're okay because we're all feeling rubbish together. Whereas I'm here to fly the flag for, no, let's all feel good and feel good together. Like, that's so much more fun. That's so much more enjoyable. So a little example that actually I thought this morning perfectly illuminated the kind of impact of this work. Because when things are going well in life, it's really easy to go, well, of course I feel good. I made the train on time and I got all the shopping I wanted, no substitutions. I completed that piece of work. I got my podcast live. There's all sorts of things where we could go, of course I feel good because everything's going well. The real test is when things are challenging and you still feel good in yourself. You still feel not necessarily cheery, smiling, bouncing off the walls, but you still feel okay. You still feel grounded. You still feel strong in yourself while you navigate a challenge. And so this morning was a perfect example. And as it was happening, I was thinking, of course, this is happening today when I'm coming to talk to you. Yeah. Because I left the house, got in the car, drove off, and the car started beeping, saying, tyre pressure's too low. So I looked at it and I thought, you're always telling me you're too low. But today it was like really low. And I was like, it's very cold. They'll warm up. And I was like, no, I'm going to be driving an hour to here, an hour after this to go and see my son. I really should go home and just get the pump out and check these. So I went home, back in the house, turning the alarm off, got the keys for my husband's car where the electric pump is, bring it back down. I think at that point I hadn't locked the house, actually I'd left it open because I thought I'll need to put the keys back inside at least. Plugged in the electronic foot pump, nothing. Oh, okay. Tried again, nothing. Pressing the button, twiddling the knob, nothing. Like, okay, this is interesting. Tried fiddling with where it's plugged into the, cigarette lighter thing.
Yes.
No, that's not changing anything. So I have, thankfully, because I'm terrible with gardens, I have a gardener. So I went round to see the gardener. I was like, Tom, have you got a a pump for your car that you could lend me because my tyres are really low, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, well, I've got a very old-fashioned one, but let me bring it and see what you think. So he brings it round. At this point, I'm like, I'd left about 25 minutes to be early for this. So at this point, I'm like, that's okay. I've still got plenty of time. He brings the pump round. I put it onto the tyre. You know when it's like not fully attached and just like, Tom, air's just coming out here. He's like, let me have a go, thinking he can do it. He's like, oh yeah, the pump's actually leaking. Like, it's not the tyre and the clip bit, it's the actual hose to the pump. It's like, so that's not going to work. So the tyre's now even flatter. I'm like, that's okay. I'll go and find a neighbour. So I went to the first neighbour. She was out, nobody home. Went to the second neighbour. They were both on work calls. So the daughter had said, I'll do my best, but they're both busy with work. And I'm like, oh, okay. Went back home. One of them might come over in a minute. And then I was like, oh, hang on. It might be my car. It might not be the pump. It might be my car that's broken and my husband's car might work. So move his car, get it all hooked up. Ah, it's working. Start pumping my tyres. My neighbour comes over. He corroborates it's my car that's broken. And at this point, I'd already messaged you actually. That was while I was waiting for the neighbour as well, going, Juliet, I might be late. And then got it done. And I was finished 10 minutes later than I'd wanted to be because of getting to here. So I was late arriving. But this is such a classic example where I could never have handled that like that in the past. Probably by step 2, when Tom's pump wasn't working, I'd have been like, oh my God, but the time, but Juliet, what's she going to think of me? But my reputation, but oh my God, because 2 of the biggest fears for me were being a failure and being wrong. So anything that I got wrong, anything that suggested I wasn't doing things right and that I was failing, felt like, I didn't know it really, but in my system felt like I'm going to die now. Like everyone's going to see how wrong I am, how much of a failure I am. And that felt like overwhelming. Yes. And so I would, in the past, I'd have been in stress, I'd have been panicking, I'd have probably been swearing at somebody or something. I wouldn't have had the presence of mind to go to a neighbour so quickly, probably wouldn't even have gone to the gardener so quickly. I'd have been trying to solve it myself, got to solve it myself. I've got to prove that I'm capable and I can do it all myself. I certainly don't think I'd have had that calm and clarity still at the point where I was then, my husband's car might work. Because the more you stay stable in yourself, the more the next step, idea drops in, you just keep moving forward. And free from that panic of, oh my God, what will Juliet think of me? It's just that simple, enjoyable, like enlivening, kind of like fascinating that this is happening today at this time. And like, would I prefer to have been on time? Yes. But was I on time? No. So is there any point stressing about that? No. And you know, when you're like in the midst of stress and somebody comes to you and says, just stop stressing, that does not work.
No.
You cannot like just undo that. You cannot just undo overwhelm by saying just don't be overwhelmed. It's already happening. So with my work and what you're obviously now training in, you remove the source of the overwhelm, the panic, the stress. So it just doesn't happen, which as you stay stable and grounded, moving step by step in life, doing the next thing, feeling whatever feelings come with that, but fundamentally more enjoyably and definitely more easily and less stressfully, which is much more fun.
Hello, I am just going to pop in here and let you know about my group coaching program, which is called The Academy. The Academy is an inspiring and supportive space where I coach like-minded ADHDers. We explore everything about living with ADHD, and you will receive personal coaching and support directly from me. I've been through the challenges of ADHD myself, and I love sharing the lessons that I've learned to help make your life easier. So I'd love for you to come and join our amazing ADHD community and learn and grow together. There's a link down below to join, and I hope to see you soon. Wow, that's such a powerful example. Because to start with, it sounds like quite a, an everyday thing with the tyres, which it is, that's the point. But when you then expanded about how you would have felt before, and I really relate to that, and I think a lot of my viewers will, because that is this sense of like, oh no, everyone's going to think I'm a failure. So it was looking to the external world for validation, and then thinking that we are going to be, they're going to actually see us for who we are. I did an episode actually last month called "Nothing to Prove, Nothing to Hide." And it kind of is like on that concept. So it sounds a bit like if you haven't got these, what we call negative identities, then you don't have anything to prove or anything to hide. You were just naturally in your own, what would you call it? How would you describe that state?
You're living your own life. Yeah, I think you've nailed it there with the fact we're looking for this validation. Because if you think of that example, like the worst case scenario for this species, like many other species that relies on others for its survival, one of the fears that comes along with all of that is, well, I'm going to be rejected, I'm going to be abandoned, I'm going to be all by myself, everyone's going to hate me. And that's often people's one of their worst fears, is to be in that situation. And so by removing all of this, then you stop fearing that. And most of us have grown up in that dynamic because innocently our parents made us feel awful for one reason or another. We weren't behaving when they wanted us to be behaving in a different way. We were having some kind of emotional experience when they wanted us to not be having that emotional experience. So there'll have been loads of times in our childhoods where, whether you call it trauma or not, we were made to feel wrong. We felt wrong in the moment of a situation, of being told off, of being in trouble. Parents, teachers, other people in authority, the grumpy neighbour down the road. Like, it could have been anybody. It could have been the most simple and seemingly innocuous moment. But if we in that moment made a negative decision about ourselves and resisted that feeling, that is the beginning of that negative identity. And then over life, we've just grown and grown, like layered onto that and built strategies and tactics to try and cover that over. But covering it over doesn't work. It still sits there. That's why people get triggered still, and why the reactions get bigger, because the thorn is still there. And every time somebody presses on it and creates that potential for that negative identity to be activated by, the threat of tyres not being able to be pumped up, the threat of not being on time for a podcast interview, boom, negative identity activated, all the big emotion that comes with that, the reactive emotion, the overwhelm emotion, and we feel awful. So I'm sorry, I can't remember what your original question was, but yes, that.
I can't remember either. But I think you answered it. and more. Yeah, no, that's so interesting. And especially, I think, for my listeners that have ADHD, there's something that gets talked about quite a lot at the moment, and it's rejection sensitivity dysphoria. And that seems to be very much linked with ADHD, having quite a sensitive nervous system, emotionally dysregulated. And it is really this like a really strong emotional reaction to being rejected. And to me, it sounds like I don't think that is really anything that's a hard wiring in our brain. I think it is what you're talking about, is a negative identity in a way that, I'm not sure how I feel about the word negative, to be honest. So we'll just, that's, even though I'm training in it, it's just, I just think all identities are there, But however, I do think that this thing about when you said, it's like a thorn and pressing it, that really is how people describe this thing about rejection sensitivity, that is almost like somebody that doesn't have that, you could touch their arm and it would just mean nothing. Whereas somebody that's got this very sensitive, like a thorn there, is going to be ouch. And people talk about this rejection sensitivity almost like a bit of a pain, like a physical pain. And so it sounds to me that, I've just wanted to kind of mention that, because I think rejection sensitivity can be quite controversial, whether it's a thing or whether it's not a thing. But it does sound like it could be sort of linked to what you're talking about here. Have you got any thoughts about that? Yeah,
that's such a great point to bring in. And so the thing that I love about this work, and it relates to what you're saying here, is that we don't even try. We do not evaluate the client. We do not try and presuppose or pre-guess or pre-decide what's going to happen or how that's going to unfold in the person's life. Our interest is dealing with the problem that they've come with. And then that individual gets to see how that unfolds for them. So if somebody came saying, yeah, I seem to be really sensitive to rejection and it really impacts me, like it feels like physical pain, great. We're going to work with that, and we're going to use the process, and we're going to see where we get to. And our promise as practitioners is that we solve your problem, and if we can't, then we'll talk to you about what's going on, and perhaps signpost you to something else. But I've not yet found something, as long as the person wants to change, the process works. So I've not yet bumped into anything. I've had about 90 clients now. I've not yet come across anything that I haven't been able to help a client with. So at the very least, it will put the person back in charge of their experience. So if there is still, let's say there is a condition of rejection sensitivity. Let's say it's a thing, which, like, if I had half a leg, the MACE method is not going to give me back half a leg. Like, let's just say it's that much of a permanent thing. Then, being back in control of your life, you would then navigate your life in a way that works for you and that experience. You would advocate for yourself in places where perhaps you don't feel able to or aren't right now. You would put yourself in situations and take yourself away from situations that work or don't work for you. And this is the same for any human being. There's, I'm trying to think an example for me, because the thing that's occurred to me specifically is something called human design, which I imagine you're familiar with.
I have heard of it. A lot of clients talk about it. I've not specifically ever gone into it myself. So I don't know that much about it.
So I've not gone deeply into it. I hugely appreciate all the people who have, because I love working with them as their client to understand myself better. But I don't have the desire to go deeply into that. It's not my thing. But what I've seen for myself is the more that I've cleaned up the negative identities for me that were in me, the more I've been able to really feel and understand that human design better for myself, to really see how that plays out, and to see things like, one of my things is to be an expert in an area, a field. And it makes total sense, like the journey I've been on for the last 10 years, it's like, well, that's made me such an expert in the human experience, in the spiritual experience, so that now working with the MACE energy method I know exactly what the MACE method is doing. I understand how it works. I understand who the person really is, and I absolutely understand what is not them. And therefore I have very great clarity around all the mechanics behind it that allows me to use this very simple process on the surface while having this background in depth, which they don't need to know. But it really helps me as an individual to know all that. And it really helps me when I'm with clients, that if they do have a question, I know how to answer it. I understand the context, so I can answer specifically for them. And that's an example where I couldn't own or see that quality in me before. It always seemed like, I learn stuff, but doesn't everyone learn stuff? And doesn't everybody research and investigate stuff? It was like this, I don't know, like it just wasn't important. It was like I couldn't see myself for having that quality. And that's what I've seen in a number of areas where things that are just how we are as a person. We're all unique. We've all got strengths. We've all got things we're not strong at. That's the point of life. Like, how boring would it be if we all had the same strengths? And once we're back in charge of our own lives, we can work with our own unique self, our own unique design, our own unique strengths and qualities, and yes, understanding our own unique challenges where we will say, I like this, I don't like that. I want to hang out with these people, not with those people. I want to, put myself in those situations and not in these situations. I want to tell this individual, please don't speak to me like that. I find it really hard because that rejection is really hard for me to hear. Here's what really works for me. So all these, I guess, things which for me, that like behavioural adjustments or language adjustments, to me, if we try to do those before clearing the thorn, we're just layering more packaging and more padding over the thorn. It doesn't get rid of the thorn, which is why so many people struggle with behavioural change solutions or language change. Because if the thorn is still there, it's going to keep preventing you from advocating for yourself. It's going to keep you in some kind of like hold back, protect, shrink, keep away from, avoid. And that's not an enjoyable life. Remove the thorn, get yourself back in charge. Then you get to advocate for yourself. Then you get to choose because you want it, not because it's an avoidance strategy or not because it's a I have to or else. It's just, no, this is what I want. This is what I like. This is what I enjoy. I'm going to do this.
Wow, and that's so powerful, isn't it? And especially, I loved everything you said, and there's so many bits that I'd like to pick up on. Which bit shall I think the bit, about we're all unique, we're different, and wouldn't it be boring if we're all the same? And I just love that, because that is how I think, about people that are neurodiverse. That we're not all good at everything, and that we can have support, we can have help with things that we're not necessarily good at. But it doesn't mean anything about our self-worth as a human being. And that is, what a lot of my clients would, have spent their lifetime. And that was my story. I felt I was a failure up until the age of 50 when I was diagnosed with ADHD. And now even when I was diagnosed with ADHD, I think I still had what we'd call these identities that were still like, I'm going to fix the ADHD so that I'm, I get on top of this thing. And actually, I think what's happened for me on my journey, which is, I've had experience of MACE, which has been amazing, but other things that, that we share the common understanding of the more spiritual side of life, then that's really kind of just helped me on in my journey. And so I was wondering whether we could talk a little bit about your book, actually, which I have got here. So this is Helen's book, everybody, which I have to say is life-changing. So if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. And I was just wondering maybe if you could tell us a little bit about what's behind this book and what it's about, really. I know that's a bit of a big question.
It's a big question.
What's it about? But if you can.
Yeah, I will. So let me give you a very potted history on what led up to that book. Having been in originally HR, and then deciding I wanted to move in the direction of leadership development and culture development, I trained as a coach through an amazing organisation called Barefoot Coaching. And they worked with the psychotherapeutic end of coaching. They did a whole broad span of things, but that really caught my attention. This understanding of limiting beliefs, negative thoughts about ourselves, which at that time I thought, oh, great, all we have to do is rewrite these thoughts, reframe these beliefs, switch a negative thought into a positive thought, then I'll be okay. And that had some effect with my clients. When I was with my clients, when I came home with my kids, I was not such a positive thinking, equanimous person. I was reactive and angry and stressed. Like I said before about the tyre situation, that was my standard operating model at home, was to be stressed and overwhelmed. Find it all too much to juggle and demands and all that. So that led me into a spiritual exploration, because when I bumped up against that, when I recognized that and went, hang on, this can't be working. I'm amazing with my clients. I do all this positive, calm, amazing with my clients. And then I'm a bitch with my kids. That's not right. I'm able to maintain this good girl image there, but not here. So that was when I first went into a spiritual exploration, because I was like, well, yeah, this must be something else. This can't be the full answer. There must be something else. So first of all, that took me into the 3 principles, which I know you had an understanding of as well as part of your journey. And in fact, it wasn't even just the three principles, because the first coach I worked with was called Piers Thurston. And I didn't know this at the time. So as far as I knew, he was a 3 principles coach. I'd actually found Buddhism in between times and thought, this Buddhism stuff sounds good. And then discovered Piers and I was like, oh my God, he sounds like he's talking Buddhism, but in a really normal person way. So anyway, worked with Piers, had an amazing experience, had an initial awakening with him in the very early stages, because he literally pulled all the rugs out from under my feet. And I was like, whoa, what the hell? And then in talking to my friend about it, she said, sounds like he's a non-dual coach as well. He's not pure 3 Ps, 3 principles. And I was like, oh, that's really annoying, because I thought this 3 principles was the answer. what's this non-dual thing you're talking about, for God's sake? Like, that's really annoying. I thought I'd found the thing. So anyway, that set me off, as I was saying before, about my human design and my desire to research and investigate. That sent me off into 7 years worth of exploration of what's three principles versus non-duality, what's awakening versus enlightenment, all of the while doing all that exploration for me, while exploring it to be able to understand it better and work with clients also, because I've tended to always had clients who've moved with me that I'm over here and like 6 months behind me, they're like, oh, what are you up to? So I've always been doing it for both me and clients the whole way through. And it was in 2021, beginning of 2021, I was tired of talking about this non-dual stuff. I talked about my patterns so much for so long. I talked about this understanding, the truth of who you really are, and I'd had glimpses, absolutely. I'd had that awakening. I'd had moments where good feelings would just appear for no reason. I knew there was something amazing available, but I was so tired of talking about it and so tired of trying to find this, what felt like the Holy Grail. So the beginning of 2021, I actually started having what are called energy transmissions, which is where people essentially bring divine energy into your field to help you raise your vibration fundamentally. And the guy that I worked with did as he said he would do and got me to 1,000. That was the Holy Grail. You get to 1,000, you're awakened. Ta-da! Magic. Done. And it worked. We did that. So by the September, he's like, yeah, you're there. And I could feel it. I could feel this shift in, oh my God, just the knowing of this all being one. Like, there was just no question in my system anymore. It was like, yeah, this is it. And it's all me, and it's all beautiful, and it's all amazing. And it had a huge impact on me. Not surprisingly, given how long I'd been looking for it, but also just, of course it does, because that's really what we all want to feel. And not long after that, I had the download for this book, which was to really take all of what I'd done to that point and make it into something very practical and real. Because one of the things that had really bugged me along the way was the ineffable quality of it, the like ungraspable. Like, I've had the experience and everybody's telling me that's who I really am, but how can I actually know that for myself? Like, I don't feel like I've got any guardrails around that. I don't feel I've got any kind of logical stability around that. It's a lovely idea. I've had the nice experience of it, but it feels very unreliable. It feels very elusive. Like, I can't choose. These moments just appear for no apparent reason. Like, I want to choose it. I want to know consciously how to feel that truth of who I am. I knew that's what I wanted all through my journey. So that when this download for the book came, it was like, oh yes, of course.
Can I just interrupt? What is a download? What do you mean by that?
Oh, just like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, just the idea lands, the idea comes in. And
so your idea for the entire concept of the book?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It just came to you?
Yeah.
Like, as in a dream or something? Not a dream, but in daylight.
In daylight, yeah. I can't remember where I was, but I just remember being like, oh my God, yes, that's the book I need to write.
Wow.
Human design, open, I think it's called head or crown, the top one anyway, means ideas come all the time. Sometimes I get these ones that feel really like, oh, yes, that's the thing. And this was one of those, which was, I've had a few of these really big ones where it's like, oh my God, yes, I have to create this. So, and so the book concept was born to make an awakening book, which was real, practical, logical, which made the exploration holdable, tangible, doable by a person. The poetic stuff's beautiful. The lovely soft conversations are beautiful, but people want the feeling of it. I mean, the MACE method's taken that to a whole other level, but people want the feeling of that. I don't think I'd have gone into a non-dual exploration if I'd found the MACE method first, because ultimately what we're doing in that is amplifying the feeling of that we really are. And I think once you found that, you're happy, you're just living your life, you're cracking on. Maybe if your life involves non-duality, then you will find out about that too. But it's making it real for people so they can actually fundamentally follow the instructions, isn't it? I mean, I'd love to hear what you would say about it now, but that was really what we wanted it to be, a practical workshop book that anybody can pick up, do the explorations that we offer. Because, of course, I partnered with Sarah Priestley on writing it. So having had the initial thoughts about it, I knew the kind of thing I wanted to create. Sarah Priestley then popped back into my world. I joined a webinar with her, and I was like, oh my goodness, she's the person I have to write this book with. She has that same practical attitude, that same, let's make this real for people, not some far off fancy, you'll get there if you're lucky. Let's make it in people's hands. Let's give the power back to people, put it in their hands. Here, you can see this for yourself.
Yeah, I got 100% agree with what you said about it being the word down to earth, really, or the words down to earth really resonate. I think that is what I loved about you and Sarah, obviously, when I first met you and you talked about the book. And I'd never heard anyone else talking about like this kind of spirituality, non-duality, in this down to earth way. And it immediately attracted me to, like getting the book and joining your book club, which I did, which was amazing. And you literally do. It's like you take your listener's hand and take them through the process step by step, like you say, break it down. And I think bringing it back to like my audience with ADHD, I think that really resonates, because some of these concepts are just a bit like you said, a bit poetic. It's lovely to have poetic stuff, has a place, but sometimes we just want practical, down to earth steps. And I know for me, that's what, to think, oh well, actually I could go through this process with you, and you're guiding me through it, and you're giving me pointers, and it's all very, I mean, I can't think of a better term that's down to earth, really. I'm sure there must be, which is ironic, really, because we're talking about, it's not down to earth, we're talking about the big spiritual nature of our whole experience and the universe and everything. So, but yeah, you do that in a down to earth, grounded way. And so, yeah, I think particularly I would recommend it to anyone. I mean, what do you think it would give somebody if they don't really know anything what we're talking about here? They're like, well, what? Yeah, this all sounds great, but what is that how is that gonna help me? Like, say for example, I have a lot of clients, and this was my experience as well, with very noisy brains, feel like there's constant chatter, and I get a lot of clients say I just can't switch my brain off, and that kind of thing. How do you think, like, maybe reading your book and the concepts within it, and Sarah's book, obviously, how would it help them?
Yeah. So if we bring it back to the analogy of the ground, and shall we use the ground? Yes, let's use the ground, and the surface appearance of people and trees and plants and birds. What we're doing in this book is helping an individual differentiate between the ground of who they are, the truth of who they are, their spiritual nature, and the surface appearance of the world and all the people and all the experiences that we have here, including the thoughts that go racing around and the feelings, like we were talking about before. So through this book, because what we do, in part one, we establish the ground. We help the individual through these practical explorations, right, recognise the ground, see the ground is there, see what the ground is like, so that you get that feeling of that ground of who we are. Then in part two, we say, right, now we're going to look at the surface. Now we look at the jobs, the achievements, the possessions. We look at the thoughts, the feelings, the physical body, and we look at all of that in relation to that ground. So all the way we're seeing, oh yeah, the ground of who I am is here, and then all this stuff is going on here, above it, as it were, not really above it, but let's pretend as above it, at the surface. always changing, always moving, always creating a different experience every single moment. And then in part 3 of the book, we bring the two things together to show that actually the ground isn't really a separate ground down here with a surface up here. That ground is actually all of this. As I said, that was my realization after my transmissions. It was like, oh my God, it's all this. There is no actual separation. There is no actual separation right now between you and me. We are this one, and we're appearing here as Juliet and Helen having this conversation. It's all this one thing. And so when we understand that for ourselves, first of all, it puts our identification back where it belongs, which is the ground. So it puts us back in identifying as the truth of who we are, instead of identifying as a person, which is something which appears at the surface. And it shifts our relationship, therefore, with all of that surface experience. So it shifts your relationship to who you are as a person, to the thoughts, to the feelings, to the body, so that all of that gets easier, because now you know you're the ground. Therefore, you're okay. You're ever present, ever calm, ever peaceful. All this stuff is always going to keep moving. But when you're grounded in who you are, you don't have to move with it. You don't have to follow every single thing that comes along. You get back in that right relationship with it all. And as I said a moment ago, then the MACE method enhances that way further, because by dealing with the thorns, that just grounds you and grounds you and grounds you deeper into your being in healthier and healthier relationship with all of the surface appearance. So yeah, it helps.
Yeah, I love that. And can you expand a little bit more about, because I can imagine I've got some people listening going, what do you mean we're not separate? Like, what can you expand a bit what that means, that we're not separate? Because it looks like we're separate, doesn't it? It looks like there's a human form here. Like you said, I'm talking to you and there's voices and there's my hand looks separate to your hand. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So often in spiritual circles, they talk about illusion. And I used to think that kind of meant like, almost like this is all a hologram, or this is like some virtual reality, which in some ways it kind of is. But more, if we take the true understanding of illusion in that it's just the appearance is different from what it actually is. So the classic of the, what they called when they look like puddles in the desert.
Oh, mirage.
Yeah. So it looks like water, really looks like water, but it's not actually water. So this surface appears like people and cameras and TVs, but it's actually not those things. Like, its fundamental nature is not those things.
What is it then? What is it if it's not what we think it is?
It's the beingness. It's the nothingness from which all things come. It's the emptiness which most humans are terrified of, but which is actually the heart of who we all are. So it's let's take it from I remember somebody doing this with me once, and it really was like, oh. So if you think about you and me sat here, and we think there's separation because we can see a gap between the two of us, but what's in that gap? We say air. Okay, but what's the air in? What's the substrate within which air appears, within which we appear? And when we investigate that substrate, we find there isn't a gap. There isn't an end point in that substrate where the Helen substrate finishes and the Juliet substrate starts. Equally, therefore, there's not gaps in the substrate between each air molecule. There's a continuous, eternal, infinite substrate, and we are all made of it.
So basically we're all just one big giant soup.
One big giant soup. And you and I are the vegetables.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Do you think energy, how does energy come into it? Because I know energy is a lot what John Mace talks about in the Mace method. How do you see energy in all of this?
It's a great question. I see energy as the next level up from that beingness, but they are so close. I almost question if there's a differentiation. because there's such a from the truth of who we are to the first level of energy. It's like, are they really different? I don't know, and I don't know if we'd ever know. I don't even know if we need to know, but certainly, they're very, very close. And so yes, we could say this is all energy appearing as matter, which actually physics has already confirmed. Quantum physics has already confirmed. That's not like a wild and wacky idea.
Yeah.
That was another book I was thinking of writing, before this one came along, was the demonstration that science and spirituality aren't actually saying different things. They're saying the same thing with different language and with different understandings, but science. The spiritual folk will often say, "Oh yeah, science is catching up," and realizing that all the mystics of the ancients have always been telling the truth, and now science is proving it.
Yes, I keep hearing that a lot about how science and actual spirituality is the same thing, and it is coming together, and it's just reminding me, when you're talking about science as well, of Einstein and what he said about time. I think he says something about the nature of time. It's an illusion or something. I can't remember the exact quote, and it might not even be actually him. I think that there's been a bit of dispute whether he actually said it, but. What would you say about time then? If there's time, and again, I know that John Mace talks about that and how that comes into the nature of, because bringing it back to my audience again with the ADHD, time is a huge thing that can cause us such angst. And I know for me, for most of my life, it was all about, I don't have enough time. That was part of the overwhelm. Like, there's too much to do, and how am I going to do it all? And it would give me this sense of kind of panic and overwhelm. And so it would be, I have experienced some like liberation, in terms of thinking about this like bigger picture of what time really is. But I wondered if you could maybe say a little bit, maybe for my listeners that might be kind of, it's all very well you're talking about all this whole swimming about in a big soup, but how do I
get to the bus on time?
Well, I need to get, and how, especially if they are struggling with, say, the ADHD does have some executive function challenges around time. So I know there's quite a lot of questions in there, but I don't know if you can, is there anything you could sort of say that might be helpful?
Yeah. So the thing that's occurring to me is to kind of do the thing that we do in that book, and which Sarah was a huge, significant, such an important part of writing that book, was Sarah's ability to spread things out. Because I would kind of come in and go, there's all this stuff, and Sarah would be like, right, let's just get that into some kind of logical order and spread it all out step by step, which is why, like you're saying, the book is such an amazing step-by-step experience for people. So a bit like time, we can spread that out into the fact there is something that we use here called time. There is a useful tool called time that means we can...
Eckhart Tolle calls it clock time.
Clock time, yeah, great. Yeah, exactly.
Clock time. We need clock time, otherwise we wouldn't make a bus or a plane.
Yeah, exactly. And I got here because of clock time, albeit late, but I got here. So clock time is super useful. It's a really useful tool. Same as hammers are useful tools. Cars are useful tools. So there's the practical fact of time. When we get overwhelmed around time, it's because now we've somehow identified with, got lost in, thought that somehow time says something about me and who I am and my value in the world. You mentioned before about somebody's worth. When we start to identify with time as though it says something about who we are, as though it says something about our value, as though it says something about our survival, really, then by golly, yes, that gets overwhelming. And that can happen with anything. Time is one amazing example. So when we spread that out and we see, there's clock time, and then there's all the stuff that comes with my experience of clock time, all this thinking and feeling and overwhelm, and I can't do it, and I'm no use at managing time, and whatever else comes with it. And never meet deadlines, or I'm always rushing to the last minute. Do you know what? Sometimes people that's just how they work. They work to the last minute. It's not wrong. It's just your design. So, so when we separate those two things out, and when you then get clear on, who am I, back to the ground piece, who am I in relation to this clock time thing and all these thoughts and feelings and experiences about time, it totally changes the scenario, the setup, the understanding, the relationships puts you back rightfully where you are and who you really are in relationship with a useful tool called time. And now with an understanding of, oh, and then there's all this stuff over here, these thoughts, feelings, reactions. Okay, what do I want to do about that? If that's still happening, what do I want to do about that?
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, that really does make sense. And it has been my experience, because I would have said I was so caught up in that concept of time that it did mean something about me, that I was less than because I couldn't manage it. It was this sort of elusive kind of concept that couldn't get control over. And I think kind of knowing that it never meant anything about me, and it is actually, that the thing with it is, it's just, it doesn't mean anything about anyone really. It's a man-made concept, isn't it? So yes, there is this clock time, this man-made concept that's useful to follow, like you say. So it becomes more just like a tool. No, it doesn't have no power over us. I think when, especially again when we have ADHD, we can almost feel like it has this power over us that. And I liked it when you said about it feels like a survival thing. So I think it does come to that. It kind of feels like we are not going to survive because we can't manage this thing that seems so intrinsic to our survival. When actually, yeah, it's really debatable whether it is even a thing.
So can I ask you a question then, from your experience of this? Have you found, I was saying before, like with the rejection sensitivity, once you've cleaned up your own thorns, it's much easier to put in practical steps and make practical solutions, advocate, blah blah blah. Have you seen that around time as well? Have you noticed that you, I don't know, have a different relationship with time now and work with time differently, or perhaps have built in strategies for yourself that just help you because it's just useful to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's what you were saying before, that once we get rid of all this kind of again, I don't like to use the word negative, but
you can talk about that if you want.
Yeah, I just find that I feel like partly of my journey is accepting all parts of us, and to label anything negative is almost rejecting that part of us. So that's probably why I would rather just say, well, we just have these identities. Some of them might not serve us as well, but I think to almost like say it's negative and we need to get rid of it, and it kind of sets up this kind of, I don't know, like feeling that we don't want these parts of us. And I do, that's really probably where I'm coming from with that.
Yeah,
but I totally get that they're not serving us, and it's this sort of kind of behaviours and things. But yeah, back to like your question about the time thing, and yeah, absolutely. I think now I just feel like I am just myself, my authentic self, that doesn't have this conditioning. I'd probably call it conditioning as well. I think that's a really good word to use, because I feel like all that conditioning that I've had, like from childhood or from being a neurodiverse person in a neurotypical world, where you can get this like warped perception of yourself and feel like you're not achieving enough, or you're not enough, or you're not measuring up to society standards. That's what a lot of my clients would say, and that was my experience. And trying to mold myself into a mold that wasn't me, and now that I could let go of all that because of everything that I've learned on my journey, including the mace, and but especially the spiritual side of things, knowing that that's all an identity. Everything was an identity, negative or not, and it's not our true self. And so then it's like, I think I would say the way I would really kind of summarize it, in one way, is that before I think I was thinking about living and trying to solve everything, and I was thinking I had to think everything, like solve it, and I just said that, but just repeated myself there, but you get the point. And now I feel like I'm naturally living. So rather than thinking about living, I'm living. And there's no angst about the stuff, really. And occasionally something might come up. And I really related with you were talking about the car thing, because a similar thing happened to me. I don't know if you're aware, but a few days ago there was some kind of big outage in data, and Zoom went out. And my conditioning was, it must be my fault. Like, I mean, the whole Zoom outage, of course, that's my fault. But I didn't know about that because I had a client and I couldn't actually get, the meeting to work. It was saying all my IDs were not,
not
valid.
valid.
I can't remember what the word, not valid, that's it.
Yeah.
And my old conditioning would have been, this is your fault, you need to sort this out, panic, overwhelm. And it didn't come up for me. It was that obviously I wanted to sort it out, but I did it in that, like you were saying, kind of quite calmly. I actually ended up cancelling that client, just moving her to the next day, which turned out to be fine for her anyway, because then I knew I had another 2 clients back to back. So I wanted to sort out the thing. When one of them was a brand new client, and my old conditioning would have been, she's going to think I'm a failure, like, that I'm trying to sort this Zoom thing out, that none of my things working. And then we got on the call and I thought I'd sorted it out actually. And it turned out she went, oh, I didn't think we were going to be able to do Zoom. There's been a massive outage everywhere. And I was like, has there? And I thought, wow, isn't that, I just had the thought that, oh, isn't that interesting? Because before I would have beat myself up, panicked the whole time before, but I didn't do that. And it turned out it wasn't anything to do with me anyway. So isn't that it didn't matter? None of it mattered. Yeah. And so, I think that's the thing, that it's not, I don't get so, I might get a little bit triggered by things occasionally. It's like I might get something come up that says, somebody, I don't know, annoys me, or I have a bit of a reaction to a family situation or something. But it doesn't hang around. It just kind of falls away. And so I think that is, I don't know if that has answered your question. I think in my ADHD style, I've probably gone on a bit of a tangent there, but did
great.
Any of that
such great examples? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you're absolutely illustrating that shift in relationship. The more you there is, the more you just want to live your life and enjoy your life, and the less there's that catastrophizing. I've got this image of there's the actual situation here, which is like this big, and then there's all the stuff that used to come around it, and now absent of all of that, you get to just stay where you are, doing what you're doing. Next step. None of the guilt, none of the reaction, none of the stories and self-blame that I know I used to really, really experience as well. Me too. I'd have also been, oh God, what have I done? Must be my fault, because I was the same. It's like, why is Zoom not working?
Yeah.
Brilliant example. Yeah. And it just makes, I think there's this idea that to live in that kind of experience would be boring. Like for life to be that obvious next step, practical, just so simple. But that to me has allowed the space to actually enjoy and immerse in the experience of life, rather than, like you say, thinking about living life. I love that distinction. You just get in and live it and be in it, and you try stuff and you fail and you learn and you go again, and it doesn't have to say anything about who you are. It doesn't say anything about who you are already. So
absolutely. And I think also it was like, I felt like I was surviving. I was trying to survive. And that definitely kind of improved once I got diagnosed with ADHD, because I learned how my brain worked, and also everything I learned around coaching and psychology, and some of this conditioning was dropping away. But I think, the mace, I would say, was the kind of final kind of thing where it just like, oh, that actually just, it all falls away, and you just feel like you are just really living, and it makes life really exciting. Like, rather than surviving, you're actually living this exciting, I just see things in Technicolor now. Like, everything seems brighter and more interesting, and I don't know, you just see love everywhere. Like, I don't know, even in animals and plants and things, it just, everything just seems, it's like, I think when you're going back to where you say we're all connected, I feel much more connected with just nature. In fact, even saying that, it's not that I feel connected with nature, I am nature. Like, we are nature, aren't we? We are that. So how can we be connected to something if we are that? Is that we are it?
We feel it, don't we? It feels like connection. It feels like love, and care. And that's when positive change starts to happen in the world. Because coming from that place, how could you hurt another person? How could you hurt another animal? How could you even cut down that tree or demolish that building? It's like the love and understanding just then exudes into everything. And that's, to me, that's the only way we're going to change the world. It has to come from within each of us. I just don't see there's another way to do it. And actually, little flag wave, because I know you said you've done all that work before, and me too. I really want to wave the flag for the fact you don't have to wait. You know, I don't know about you, Juliet. I spent 10 years and 70 grand trying to get to here. And I really want people to know they can shortcut that.
I think I spent more than 70 grand, that's for sure. Yeah.
So I really want people to know they can come straight to the Mace Energy Method.
Yeah.
Maybe after that you'll be interested in reading the book, or maybe you want to do it the other way around, but I really want people to know you can shortcut the whole personal development thing. When you remove the thorns, then go see what you want to play with in personal development. I still value having a coach who will challenge me and who'll question me and who'll have me see things that I can't currently see. That's so valuable. But now doing it free from those thorns, it's value times 10, because I'm not now sabotaging myself. I'm not now holding myself back from things. So I really advocate for do the Mace Energy Method first, then see what you love, then see what lights you up, then see what your thriving version of life looks like. Because when you're free from all that crap, and to me it is crap, that's why we don't want it. That's why we poop. That's why we throw up. That's why we brush our teeth. There are things that don't belong in our system naturally.
Yeah.
And to me, these thorns, these negative identities, they don't naturally belong in our system, in our human system. Of course, they belong in the whole or they wouldn't be here. But in our human system, no. Please, anybody who's interested in this, get yourself free, then live your life.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I mean, that sounds like such a great place to end. But before we do, I just want to ask, you know, where can people find you? How can they get in touch with you if they want to explore what you've been talking about here?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Juliet. So my business is called Wild Fig Solutions. That's WILDFIG Solutions, all one word, based on the fact the wild fig has the deepest roots in the world. And I think I've perhaps demonstrated today why that was the name of my business all the way back in 2014. I was always interested in getting to root cause, getting to the source of the problem and solving that so people could actually live and thrive. So, that's my website. I've got a YouTube channel. I'm on LinkedIn mostly in terms of socials. And we can obviously put all these links in the show notes, I guess, so that people can connect wherever they want to connect.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, the YouTube, you've got loads of material on YouTube, haven't you? So I'd say that that's a great place to hear people's stories around Mace, isn't it? And you've even got me on there,
including
haven't
you.
Talking about procrastination and and being free of it, really.
Yeah.
Which again, this is why I'm here doing this podcast, because I've been thinking about podcasts for quite a long time, but I'm actually doing it now. And obviously, don't forget the book, everybody. So this is one of the best books I've ever read around the whole spirituality. If you want something to be like broken down and a simple concept, then I would really recommend it. So. Okay, well, thank you so much, Helen, for coming today. And
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.